All right, so it's February, and I don't know if you know or not, but it is Heart Month. So it's all about spreading awareness for congenital heart defects, heart disease. Our family was impacted by congenital heart defect, and this month just so happens that our son Aiden is having a heart cath procedure in a couple of weeks. So I thought, what better time to talk about Aiden's diagnosis and our pregnancy journey with him than Heart Month. So I've never shared in detail everything about our diagnosis and pregnancy journey with Aiden, so I really just want to share that with you. Okay, so I'll just start from the beginning and share a little bit about our family background. So when I got pregnant for Aiden, Ashley was 4 years old and Andrew was 10 months old. We weren't looking to get pregnant at that point. We wanted to space all of our kids out by like 2 or 3 years. But now looking back, God's hand was in all of it. Aiden was a beautiful surprise. When we found out we were pregnant, we were ecstatic. There wasn't like a crying. I was devastated. We knew we wanted 4 or 5 children. We had just hoped to space them out. But again, God's timing is always better than ours. And we were so blessed. But I was 8 weeks pregnant when I found out that I was expecting another child because I was still breastfeeding Andrew. So it took me a little longer than what it did with my other pregnancies to find out. And I do remember at that point, like having that sense of panic to my husband of, I'm still breastfeeding. So you're already kind of depleting, your own body nutrients. And I wasn't the best. I took my prenatal up until I was 6 months breastfeeding, but for the 4 months up until conceiving, I was not taking my prenatal. And I remember telling my husband, that was the first thing I kind of panicked about, was like, I haven't been taking a prenatal and I'm still breastfeeding. I was very just from the very beginning kind of uneasy. I think it was the day or two after I found out I was pregnant, I was in a minor car accident. And that's actually how my pregnancy was confirmed. I had taken a home pregnancy test, but I didn't have my appointment with my doctor yet. But after my car accident, I had to go to the hospital. They confirmed we were pregnant. We were so excited, but a little bit worried. I was rear-ended. So again, planting those little seeds of, I kind of prayed extra hard over this pregnancy of like, Lord, you're just giving me an uneasy feeling. What does this mean? So fast forward until I was 15 weeks pregnant, and I remember telling my husband just out of the blue one evening, and I said, I really want to find out the gender sooner. I had never done that in my other pregnancies. I waited until that 20-week anatomy scan, but again, that seed was planted where I said, let's go do one of those 3D, 4D ultrasounds at the places that aren't your doctor, and my husband agreed, which again, if you know my husband, for one, it's not something I would generally suggest. I'm a very medical, we just do what's medically necessary. So doing an ultrasound early just to find out the gender was not like me, and my husband agreeing to it was definitely not like him either. But my whole thought process was, I wanted to find out the gender with our kids. We had little kids, and I knew they wouldn't be able to go to the 20-week scan, and I really wanted both of our moms to be involved. So my husband said yes. We scheduled it for 2 days later, and we went into I was 15 weeks, 4 days, I think at this point, and we went into a place called Ultrasona, and they do the 3D, 4D, the fun, you're going to find out the gender, an extra little sneak peek at your baby. So, we went in for that. I remember vividly our moms giggling, my husband and I just faces just full of so much joy of we are going to find out the gender of our baby. Secretively, I really wanted a girl. I just was I wanted girl, boy, girl, but I didn't really care. I just kind of secretly deep down was I kind of hope it's a girl. So we went in there, and I remember, I will just never forget this room in all of my life. The nice cozy couches. There were all these toys for Andrew. At this point, he was 14 months old. So he was a wild little toddler getting into everything. But I remember when he walked in, he was fascinated with these toys and sat right down and started quietly playing. And we were like, this is going to be a really good day. So everyone got cozy on the couch, and the ultrasound tech started. my ultrasound, she was really bubbly, the sweetest woman in the world. She was very talkative and just chatting with our family. And I remember probably 3 or 4 minutes into the ultrasound, she got really quiet and I just felt the whole room change. And to this day, everyone else said they didn't feel it. Like, I had no idea, but I felt it in my soul, and I'm like, something is not right here. So she continued for probably like 10 minutes. At that point, we're kind of sitting awkwardly, where our moms are like, okay, what are we having? And she just kept telling us, first I have to, required to do the anatomy scan and make sure everything's okay before we go with the fun gender stuff. And I knew then, I was like, she kept going back to his heart and his head, to his brain. And I just knew, I was like, there's just something. She's acting too serious for her bubbly personality. And the room was just growing more like dreary. And so she kind of whispered to me and she said, can you ask your moms to take the kids out of the room? And I remember like at that moment looking at her, I'm like, no, you don't understand. We want our moms and kids to know at the same time as us what the gender is. And she kind of like made eye contact with my husband and said, no, you really need to have them leave the room. And I knew at that point it probably wasn't good, but I didn't know what it was because I'm watching my baby up on the screen moving, his heart beating. So I knew it wasn't like he had passed away. So we awkwardly asked our moms to leave, and they knew. I think, I saw in their faces as they took our kids out of the room and looked back at us of like, we're so sorry. They just knew it wasn't good. So the ultrasound tech proceeded to tell us that she wasn't allowed to let us know, what was wrong with our baby, but there was something seriously wrong with him. And all she would tell us was, there's something wrong with his heart. And she said, there's something, I'm seeing something on his brain. And the thing that stuck with me the most, but not until like the next day, was she kept saying, I can't see his entire spine to tell you if it's spina bifida. And I was just like, okay, she doesn't know if it's spina bifida. And she was like, no, I can't see his entire spine to tell you if he has spina bifida or not. Again, right over my head, I was just like, okay, why is this lady continuing to tell me this? She just kept saying she sees something on his brain. So then she asked, do you still want to know the gender? And I was I remember being really offended. And I said, of course I want to know the gender. This is my baby. And so she was like, okay, well, some people don't want to know. I knew in that moment it was really bad. Because if I didn't want to know the gender of my baby, it could mean one thing, was I'm not going to meet my baby alive. So she actually ended up telling us it's a boy before our moms came back in the room. And then I said, I want to go on ahead and have my mom sit here and my kids, to be joyful. And, I didn't want my kids stressed because Ashley at 4 already kind of knew, she could read people really well. So we brought them back in and we just kind of whispered to both of our moms, something's wrong with the baby. We don't know what yet. But she went ahead and announced it was a boy, and we, did the best we could to celebrate that. And I remember her telling me at the end, we're going to give you a full refund, which I think the price was like around $250, which again shows how unusual it was for our family. That's not something we would usually spend money on. But again, my husband agreed. I think it was my Valentine's Day present, because I believe it was February 10th or 12th that we went to this appointment. So we joked, it's my Valentine's Day gift, that I get to know the gender, beforehand. So she just kind of explained to us what was going to happen from this point. She would contact my doctor immediately. We'd most likely get into a fetal specialist within a couple of days. So again, all of these things pouring on me that I knew this was not good. Everyone was rushing. Well, that evening, my OB called me at home at like 8 or 9 o'clock at night after my husband we had come home and like Googled everything we could. The heart, we knew, like, we can't figure that out. We were only 15 weeks pregnant. But we kept Googling things about the brain, and it just kept coming back anencephaly. And my husband's like, we need to be prepared for this, of this awful news and I said, well, there's nothing to prepare for. This is our baby. And that night, I remember I made it our point, we will name him. Before we go, our doctor called and said, tomorrow you're getting into the hospital to go see a fetal specialist. So I told my husband, before we walk into that appointment and get our diagnosis, he will have a name. And so we named him Aiden. And from then on out, I was like, this is Aiden, And so the next day we went to our appointment. We had decided, because Andrew was still so little, we had never left him alone. In fact, Ashley, we'd only left her with a sitter when we delivered Andrew. So we weren't ones that ever had babysitters. So we decided it was best my husband would stay out in the van with the kids and my mother-in-law would go in with me. She just really was a strong support system. We felt like I needed someone else to hear everything the doctor said in case I just completely spaced out. So the next day we went to the fetal medicine doctor. They're specialists with high-risk pregnancies. They have all the high-powered equipment, and they were going to tell us exactly the diagnosis. So as soon as we got in there that day, they get very serious, friendly people, the sweetest people. To this day, we are still good friends with some of them, but very serious and somber. It is not the pretty, nice music playing as you get your ultrasound. It's very serious, multiple people in the room, and a special doctor that's what they specialize in, is fetal ultrasounds. So they gave us our diagnosis that they could tell our baby had a heart defect. They just couldn't tell us exactly which one. It was so early on. The heart is so tiny. They could just tell the blood wasn't pumping correctly off of his heart, and that our baby had spina bifida. And at that point it clicked. That's why she kept saying that. She knew in her heart he had spina bifida, and she was trying to tell us ahead of time. And the thing on the brain is, kids with spina bifida have this, I think all of them, if not most of them, have what they call like a banana shape on their brain, because most of them have, and again, I think all of them, but I don't want to say that and be wrong, but that they have hydrocephalus. So they have this like little banana shaped thing on their brain, and that's what she kept looking at. That's why she knew he had spina bifida without even seeing his full defect. So basically that day, the doctors gave us the diagnosis, and they immediately started telling us about what his life would look like, what the pregnancy would look like, birth. They poured I think it was like a 2-hour appointment, and they they poured so much information on us that day. And of course, I'm sure everyone's wanting to know, yes, we were asked if we wanted to terminate. In our experience, it was a very loving, it was a quick, like, this is your option. I immediately said, absolutely not. This is not a fetus. This is Aiden. And, we will honor the Lord in what he has asked, and whatever that may be is the journey that we are going to embark on. And then that was pretty much it at that point, at that appointment. Okay, they respected and did not push anything. They just gave us all of the information. This is what the pregnancy will look like. This is what his life could look like. And they scheduled our 18-week follow-up, which is when we would have a cardiac fetal specialist, which actually ended up being Aiden's cardiologist throughout most of his life until he retired. And so we started telling family and friends. I believe I posted on Facebook, our baby has spina bifida, and we had such an outpouring of love. A lot of people praying miracles and hope over us of maybe they're wrong. I knew in my heart they weren't. I saw it for myself, and I know ultrasounds can be wrong, but I knew that he was going to be born with these birth defects. And God put peace over me. I remember I never had a full out sobbing cry or a meltdown. During that entire time, I was just very at peace of this was what was always written for our family. I had times of being overwhelmed, but I was never like hopeless. So at 18 weeks is when we went in for the cardiac fetal ultrasound, and that's when they were able to, at 18 weeks, with his teeny tiny heart, they gave us the exact heart diagnosis, which was tetralogy of Fallot with absent pulmonary valve. To this day, I do not know how they do it, but they're amazing. And that's when they kind of gave us our little bit more somber news of, your baby is very, very sick. For us to be able to see this heart defect so specifically already and what it's doing to his body does not look good. He also only had one kidney, and it didn't look like it was working the best. So they started preparing us, telling us, your baby may not survive the pregnancy. So at that point, they also gave us more information that having multiple birth defects like that is not common. So to have spina bifida and a heart defect is not the norm. And they said there's probably a chromosome abnormality that is causing this. So they gave us some possibilities, and we said, okay, we'll take what's handed to us. We can get through this. And at that point is when they started sending us to Nationwide Children's Hospital, which is our local children's hospital, and having us meet with a different the specialist he would have, the neurosurgeon that would do his spina bifida repair, the cardiologist who we'd already met, but we met him then in the office as well. And we met with some neonatologist type of people, just giving us a look. It wasn't to scare us, it was to prepare us and educate us. This is what life is going to look like, and this is what we expect. If he survives the pregnancy, this is what's going to happen. And I just really remember, what I hold the most in my memory is that they kept saying how sick he was and how complex. You need to understand how complex this is. And it was when we met with the neurosurgeon that changed everything, that he said, listen, because he has all of these things coming at him, we really believe he has a chromosome abnormality, possibly trisomy, 13 or 18. And I'm like, okay, we understand, we had done our research, but he's like, no, you don't understand. If we suspect he has trisomy, then when he is born, we cannot perform his myelomeningocele repair, which is his spina bifida repair, until those results come back. Now, to this day, I honestly don't know if that is true or not. I've honestly never researched if they really can't perform, but that was what was told to us. We trusted our doctors. And he said, so if you don't get an amniocentesis right now, before he's born, then once he's born, we have to wait days until those results come back, until I can do a spinal repair. And then we knew you can't do that. That spinal repair has to be done in the first day or two. And that's like a death sentence if we wait longer. So my husband and I said, okay, we'll have to do the amnio. I cannot tell you how much faith that took, how much guilt I had, because I felt like, I think the doctors, in fact, I know that the fetal medicine doctors thought I was doing it to make a decision on to terminate or not. Even though we told them, no, it's because this is what the neurosurgeon told us, they still, I think, very much treated it as I hope it doesn't come back, that he has a chromosome abnormality, this family's going to be devastated, when my husband and I were just like, no, we just need you guys to know so you can perform the surgeries. We are going to love him all the same. So at 21 weeks, I went in. They wanted to do it before 22 weeks. I don't remember all the reasonings. I know one is 22 weeks was the cutoff, they told us, for terminating for our particular set of circumstances. But also it's kind of like the best time frame for, there's still he's not so big that they could injure him. There was less risk of injuring him at that point, but also me sustaining the pregnancy. So that was actually the most terrifying part of my entire pregnancy, because I felt like I was making a choice that could harm my baby. And if something happens, how could I forgive myself? But I also knew if they can't perform this spinal surgery, then how can I forgive myself? So we did a lot of praying about it. We, sought wise counsel to pray over us, and we just knew it's what we needed to do. So we had the amniocentesis. It was really, really scary. It was painful, And then, watching him up, they let us watch on a big screen, and I'm just like, don't get that needle too close. Things you never thought. I was 25 years old, and I thought, this just does not happen to healthy 25-year-olds. How could this have happened? And so we waited, I think it was like a week. It was a really long week of waiting for those results. And it came back that he had 22q deletion syndrome, which is not life-threatening in itself. It's not like trisomy. 22q is mostly that they have learning disabilities and speech and hearing, things that he could still survive with alone. But it explained everything on why he had multiple. He's missing part of his 22nd chromosome. So it accounted for spina bifida and heart defect and just different missing pieces with Aiden. So throughout the rest of my pregnancy, we just kept getting different information. We went in every couple weeks, sometimes weekly, sometimes twice a week, depending on what was going on with my pregnancy, to get fetal scans and just to talk to doctors. They were amazing at walking this road with us, answering questions. It didn't matter if it was day or night. They're like, please call us. Like, we are here for you. We had the best medical support system. I know not everyone has that. We were very blessed with having the best team that loved our Aiden. Many of them referred to him as Aiden. I had asked them, like, please don't call him the fetus. This is Aiden, and most respected that. Some still would say the fetus, and you have to take a deep breath and just realize that is what is ingrained in them. But fast forward to probably around 28 or so weeks of my pregnancy, and I started having more complications where they would have to go in kind of to like an amnio and drain the excess fluid. And I think it's like hydrocephalus, I think. I honestly don't remember. It was so long ago, but I had way too much amniotic fluid. So they would have to go in and drain that. Very painful. And then you have to kind of remain on like a moderate bed rest for a couple days after, just so that baby is not too stressed out. And at that point, they just really started preparing us for his birth. The biggest thing they told us, if his heart just stops in my womb. That was our biggest fear the entire time. So they just kept saying, let's get you to 35 weeks. They kept giving me different, goals to hit. If we can get to 35 weeks, so that's what we kept doing. Just every day with him was a gift, and we did not take that for granted. We mostly focused on getting him to birth. Beyond that, we could not even begin to comprehend what was about to be ahead of our life and Aiden's life. So my husband and I just kept focusing on each day. Okay, he's here another day. Okay, he's really strong. He's proving to us he's so strong and he's got this. And I actually ended up going to 37 weeks in my pregnancy, which was just a miracle. Oh my goodness, that boy, he was so active. I really felt like I had a very typical pregnancy with him. I was like, I swear he just kicked. They're telling me a spina bifida, and those definitely range in their leg movement, but I had hooks. I'm like, okay, that was definitely a kick and not a punch. So we had times of hopefulness of he's very feisty. He's very, very, and if you know Aiden now, yep, it explains his personality. He's the most feisty. I've never seen a child with such a will to live as Aiden. If you know him, I know you can agree that just this child is, sometimes I say he's not human. It's just, he's amazing. But we got to 37 weeks in our pregnancy, and we knew we would have to have a cesarean because of his spina bifida, because his spinal cord was exposed on the outside of his body. With me naturally delivering him, I could potentially cause much more damage, and the stress on his heart, we just knew we had to have a scheduled cesarean to get him out quickly, safely. It was a lot, because my other two children I had delivered naturally with no pain meds, no epidural. That was what I wanted. That was always our intention for all of our deliveries, but sometimes you just have to do what is best for the baby and give up all kind of those dreams or those ideas you have. You have to just do what, is best for the baby. So, when I went in to deliver him at 37 weeks, that was a very hard day. Sorry. It brings back so many emotions, because we went in that day with plans set in place, paperwork set in place with the hospital and with Nationwide Children's of our wishes. And, you know, you never want to go in not knowing if you are going to birth a baby that is alive or if they pass shortly after. And we had to have those plans in place of what our wishes were for our sweet, sweet little baby. So we went in that day to have our cesarean, and they were so great about letting us have different friends come in and wish us well, our family, pretty much whoever we wanted to wish us well that day, within reason, of course, could be there and be our support system. So I had two of my best friends, our parents, and Ashley and Andrew were there. And they were so little, and Andrew was only 19 months old at that point. Ashley had, I think, she'd just turned 5. And explaining to them, they're just so excited. You know, mommy's gonna have our baby brother, Aiden. And how could you tell them, you know, he may not be born alive? We kind of protected them from a lot of that. They knew, especially Ashley, she knew he was sick. She did not know the extent of it. But we went in to deliver him, and that was being in that room. First of all, I was terrified to have a needle stuck in my back. I was like, oh, I was so scared. But you know what? God placed the most beautiful people in that room that made that day so joyful and way less scary. I cannot even tell you, he handpicked every single person in that room. It's such a beautiful God story of, it could have went so much different, and there was so much laughter and hope, and everyone just kept reminding me, you're gonna meet your baby, like, it's gonna be fine. And it was never, even though there was probably 30 people in that room preparing for Aiden, because no one knew if he was coming out alive, breathing, what kind of help he needed immediately. And I'll never forget the best part, because you have to know, my OB was incredible during this entire time. This man had he's delivered all of my children. And okay, so you're gonna be like, wait, you were in the middle of a story, Kayla, and you just stopped telling your story. So we actually, the life of technology, we lost some of the footage. I was in the middle of telling you that really funny story, and I don't know what happened. So I think my card filled up, but it still showed me recording. So I brought Aiden for a minute. Can you say hello? You don't want to hear the story? Well, as I was telling you guys my really funny story of when the doctor was ready to deliver Aiden, we were having a cesarean, and there were like 30 people in the room. Everyone was very serious of like getting this guy out safely. So my doctor was supposed to... Are you telling the story? Okay, he's gonna tell the story. He says, I remember, but when it was time for the doctor to pull him out, he was supposed to immediately put him in a sterile bag because part of his spinal cord was, you know, on the outside of his body. So there are, I think, 2 nurses waiting with the sterile bag. Like, as soon as you pull the baby out, stick him right in the sterile bag. But my doctor, you know, he had I loved my whole entire pregnancy. He had such a human aspect to him of, like, he referred to Aiden as Aiden and not the fetus. And he just really, like, was invested emotionally in this for our family. So he kind of, I don't remember if it was him or the anesthesiologist had told my husband, like, get your camera ready. So I do remember, it's so funny, isn't it? And you guys, he pulls Aiden out, and all the nurses are like waiting with this sterile bag, and he'd go ahead. So Aiden was done. He wanted to just go back to his iPad. I don't blame him. But okay, back to my story. Okay, so the doctor pulls him out, and the nurses are like ready with the bag. Well, God love him. My doctor was so happy that Aiden was breathing. He thought it, you know, no harm done if I just lift him over the curtain for Mom to see Aiden, her precious new little baby. The nurses were so mad, you guys, because he's like, here's your baby, his spine's hanging out. Now, he knew that split second was probably not going to injure Aiden anymore. He knew mom and dad need to see their baby. And in hindsight, it was probably 2 or 3 seconds, but it seemed like in the moment, like, he's in so much trouble as they're like chasing Aiden around with the bag. It was so funny. In that moment, I was just like, oh my goodness, I love my doctor so much. And it was what brought a lot of peace and joy in that moment of we got to experience that split second of like normal parenthood of here's your baby, you know, before he goes off to, you know, be rushed away to the hospital. So after Aiden was born, they put him in they got him in a sterile bag and took him over to assess him. And I remember in that moment, I just told my husband, like, I need you to go be with Aiden, in as much as they would allow him, which the team was really great because Aiden's breathing was stable. You know, there wasn't that emergent trying to intubate him. So they did allow my husband to go. I don't think he could be right up on the isolette, but he could at least see and try to get some pictures for me as they are assessing Aiden and kind of stabilizing him. I think they had to get like IVs right away and just get that spinal cord very sterile. So the bag went up to Aiden's neck, and I think they even like taped it around him. I don't remember exactly, but it was like pretty intense. So that probably took him an hour and a half while I was getting closed up from my cesarean, while they assessed and stabilized Aiden before taking him to the NICU. And I'm going to post a picture here where you're going to see that they did not expect I would get to see Aiden after birth. They thought that we're going to whisk him away straight up to the NICU. You know, you're probably not going to see your baby. And because he was doing so great, they did wheel him over. Here's the picture of me getting to see Aiden, and it was the best blessing. In that moment, you can see we're just like making eye contact here. His personality from day one was exactly how it is now. Very calm. He had the most calm demeanor, very just chill. He's a very chill kid. And even in this moment, they had just placed an IV. They had just poked and prodded and assessed him for like an hour and a half. He hadn't been with his mommy or daddy, you know, skin to skin, what most babies might get. And he is still so calm and at peace. And I knew in that moment, it was God telling me, like, this is going to be okay. He is a fighter, and he has the best personality for this journey he's about to embark on. That he's going to be separated from mom and dad. He's going to have a lot of medical procedures and things, and it's going to be okay. But it got even better. So they took him away up to the NICU. They had me say my goodbyes at that point. And, you know, which was really hard, but they ended up getting him to the NICU, and he was doing so well. This was my hospital's NICU. So they were just getting him settled for Nationwide Children's Hospital transport to come get him. But he was doing so well that they allowed all of our friends, our family, and most importantly, Andrew and Ashley, maybe Andrew didn't, I don't remember. Ashley for sure got to go back and meet him before he went off to, you know, the children's hospital. We did not expect that. They had told us throughout the pregnancy they expected Aiden to be really critical in those, you know, first few hours. Probably no one would see him. They would get him immediately to Nationwide, and it could be days before anyone really got to see him. And my fear was, what if he passes away and his siblings and his grandparents and no one gets to meet him? But God, you know, he was amazing. And we had the best medical staff that allowed that, you know, that they said, you know what, just keep bringing him back, you know, and no one touched him. He was kept safe from germs and all of that. But not only did they get to meet him, but as I'm in the recovery room, because I had contact with no one at that point, I think I was by myself. My mom might have been with me, but I'm pretty sure I was by myself in recovery, because I just kept telling everyone, go be with Aiden, you know, go give him the love that I'm not able to right now. And I remember, I think it was my husband called me. I'm in recovery. He's calling on my cell phone. And back then I did not have like a smartphone, internet, none of that. It was, you could call or text. And he called and was like, you know, are you decent? Are you ready? And like 2 seconds later, they come around the curtain with Aiden again So when the Nationwide team came to get him, instead of just transporting him immediately to the hospital, they came and found me in recovery. And I think I have a picture, if so I'm gonna put it here, on when they brought him, you know, when I was able to see him again, before they took him to Nationwide. And it just, I feel like, changed the trajectory of everything. Those few small acts of kindness was what was so healing for me in that first day or two before I could get to the hospital to be with Aiden, that I had those moments where I could tell him, I love you so much, stay strong. I could pray over him, and just that piece of, with my own two eyes, seeing he really is doing remarkably well. We couldn't believe it. So at that point though is when they took him over to Nationwide Children's Hospital. And then the next following days, you know, he would go through multiple surgeries and a lot of ups and downs. I will be sharing a part 2 with you guys, all about Aiden's first 1 or 2 years of life and what that looked like. It was intense. There were a lot of scary moments, especially, you know, like a week into his NICU stay at Nationwide Children's is when things started to kind of go downhill for him. So I will share that in another video. But I just want to tell you guys, thank you so much for your support and love for our family. You know, thank you for watching this video just to learn a little bit more about what a diagnosis and pregnancy looks like when you get, you know, such a life-altering diagnosis for your baby. We appreciate it so much. I post daily over on my social media. I'm on Instagram right here at Mountain Feather Designs. I put Aiden, he's in my stories all the time. We do some really fun dances and stuff. And you can also email me if you have any questions. I'll put my email right here. And subscribe. We would love if you would subscribe to our channel. That helps us so much so we can continue creating content for you guys, bringing you along on our journey. And we just love and appreciate you all so much.